7 o'clock.
We'll do a countdown.
I'm going to mute myself.
Good evening. My name is Christy Keeler, and I am a Purina sales specialist. I work with Farmers Co-op, and we welcome you tonight for another round of our cattle chat series. Just as a friendly reminder, all of our lines are muted on Zoom tonight. And with that being said, if you are joining us this evening via your computer, in the bottom left-hand side, there's a couple of ways to join your audio, and that's either by dialing in or by selecting the computer audio option there. If you are joining us with a mobile device on your Zoom app, please feel free to drop any of your questions in, and that's in the bottom right-hand side underneath the More. So click on that, and then it'll bring up the chat option. In the computer box, it would be in the bottom middle portion of your computer screen, which is the chat icon there. And please drop those questions in for Dr. N.T. Crosby this evening. And if you guys are catching us live tonight on our Facebook live stream, we will continually monitor the comment box to address any of your questions that you might have tonight. So drop in, let us know where you are joining us from tonight. I'm in the Broken Arrow, Oklahoma area, and Dr. N.T. Crosby, I guess I will let them know where you're joining from tonight. We appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to drop in again for our Cattle Chat series. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Well, good evening, and Christy, thanks for the invite. Tonight I am in Lebanon, Missouri, so a little bit north and east of Springfield along I-44. And as a Purina nutritionist, this is one of my favorite topics to discuss, and that's about forage quality. And as a nutritionist, I think about the training I've had and how to apply that to help our customers better utilize their forage, meet their cows' requirements. And I realized one day that I do a whole lot of things based on averages. So you tell me you've got average grass hay, and I assume an average cow weight. And from that, we put together rations based on those averages, when in fact, there's very little that is average in our industry. And honestly, for those of you joining us this evening, another definition of average is not one you're striving to achieve. You want to be better than average. Nobody has put a sign up in their office with a motivational slogan that says the relentless pursuit of mediocrity. Well, we all want to be better than average. And frankly, from a nutrition standpoint, I think we have to do better than just relying on averages and an average hay and an average cow requirement of an average cow in our part of the world. So what are some things that we can do to be better than average? So some ideas I have for our time this evening is to talk a little bit about the challenge with that. It sounds really easy. Just match your cow requirements at the time when the forage best meets those, and everything will be fine. Well, that's not the easiest thing to do, and so we'll talk a little bit about that. The other thing we'll do is kind of go through a brief Purina commercial and maybe a preview of coming attractions, some things you'll hear from some of my counterparts in our next two scheduled cattle chat series about the Purina All Seasons Nutrition Program, as well as our mineral program. So little bit of teaser on that. And if you can stick with me through that, at the end of this presentation, I'll give you some information that you can use with your forages, whether you buy any product from Purina or not. So stick around to the end, and I'll help you understand how to interpret a forage test, how to use that thing, and how to better feed your cows and meet their requirements, whether you buy a pound of Purina or not. So stick around to the end. So as I said, and as Dr. John Patterson so eloquently stated here, is the constant challenge for the cow-calf producer is to match forage nutrients with animal requirements. Now the issue is for us, let's just pick one of those targets. Forages, for example, they are always changing. And so this chart shows that our cool season grasses typically peak, shown there in that blue line, in late spring, early summer, and then decline through that summer slump period. And then have a little bit of boost this time of year. For example, fescue forage this time of year with a little bit of rain and some cooling off of the temperatures. That stuff will have a little bit of a boost in the fall and then fade again as it loses its color into the winter. Warm season grasses. So think about your Bermuda grass. It starts getting good about with plenty of moisture, and then starts declining, and obviously is not very good once it goes dormant. And then maybe you've got some legumes in there that kind of follow the cool season pattern as well. So if you are in a situation or pastures where you have a blend of cool and warm season grasses, so fescue, Bermuda, as we have a lot in your part of the world, you can see that there are fewer gaps if we appropriately manage those forages. But the point I wanted to make here is the forages are always changing. So it is sometimes difficult to match those cow requirements with forage requirements or forage nutrients because they are also changing. What else is changing? Well, here's the reality of, for pretty much all of us, which one of those is the average cow? Look over here, far left, you've got a cow that is a body condition score 5 to 5.5. And just mention if you're interested in learning more about body condition scoring, we'll have a topic cattle chat on that later on in November. But that cow, you can see a little bit of her backbone, a little bit of dip between her hooks and her pins. So she's a condition score 5. Middle cow, condition score 6. You can't really see any backbone, no dip between her hooks and pins. That cow has got more condition on her than the cow to her left. And then the cow to the right, you can see how her shoulder blades poking out. Can start to see some ribs a little sharper over the top. So she's a condition score 4. Every one of those cows has a different requirement. So which one's average and which one do we feed, and how do we match forage requirements when their requirements are also different? All right, I want you just to picture this cow a minute. I'm going to ask you some questions, and I want you to think how you would answer those. Okay, so first question I typically ask about this cow is she young or old? And I think most of us would probably look at that cow and, oh, maybe her tail switch has been cut, but maybe it hasn't. But that short tail switch, narrow muzzle, just the overall appearance of that cow would tell us she's a relatively young cow, maybe even still growing. Maybe a 3 or at oldest probably a 4-year-old cow. And then we'd ask, well, what's the age of that calf? And that calf, if we look at the size and the way it kind of appears there, maybe we'd say that calf is 60 to 90 days of age, somewhere in there. So if that calf is 60 to 90 days of age, that means that cow is hitting peak milk production. It usually happens somewhere around 60 days after calving is when she hits peak milk production. So that means her requirements are as high as they're going to be through all the production year. And if that calf is truly 60 to 90 days of age, that probably means that we've turned bulls in to get her bred. Okay. Well then, so we know she's a young cow, maybe still growing, high requirements. And so we're trying to match her requirements with that forage. And we look at that forage and we say, you know what, it looks pretty good. It's vegetative. but you notice there's a lot of brown in between, so it's a little bit short. So pretty good quality forage, but maybe not enough of it. So the question I would ask is that cow gaining weight or losing weight? We put all the facts together: a young cow, peak lactation, short forages. She's probably losing weight. Now, how many of you would feed her? And I think most of us, if we truly admit and be honest with ourselves, none of us would feed her, right? Because she looks good today. Even though sitting here in a comfortable, easy chair tonight, looking at this cow, we would all probably agree that she's losing weight going into the breeding season. And yet we won't feed her because she looks good today. So that is one of the challenges with matching our cows' requirements and forage, is by the time we notice an issue or a change or we notice that our cows are losing weight, it's too late. We've lost ground and we have to try and pick them back up. Here's a pretty typical picture of cows in the springtime, whether I am in northeast Kansas or southwest Arkansas or northwest Missouri. This is just a pretty typical spring picture. That cow is out there. She's just calved. The grass isn't coming, but you can start to see a little bit of green in there. And she's trying to find every blade of it she can, because she's been all winter trying to, make it through on hay. And we all look at that and we say, oh, we're 30 days from grass, or we're 40 days from grass, or we're 3 weeks from grass, and we don't feed her, even though we know that cow is out there chasing green grass. Not enough of it out there. It's high in water content. And she is probably losing some weight at a time when she's making a whole lot of milk for that growing calf. And so sometimes we tempt ourselves, or we justify it to ourselves some of the management practices that we do. Of course, we'd all like to have situations like that. A cow obviously milking well, standing knee deep in good quality forage and in excellent condition. And so I guess the question might be, what would it take to keep a cow in that kind of condition on a year-round basis? Because that would be the goal if we can do that economically. So in reality, as we look at the reality, and when I say reality, the reality of every one of our places back at home, forages are always changing. Not only that, cow requirements are always changing, and we haven't talked about fetal programming or developmental programming, but facts are oftentimes how we take care of a cow affects not only the calf by her side, but the one that she is carrying once she's bred. You tell me what an average year is anymore. I don't know what that is in terms of rainfall. And this question I would submit is, can you manage by averages? And so this is just something as a nutritionist, it took me a whole lot longer to realize than it ought to have. And that is, I think it's really very difficult to manage by averages. And we're selling ourselves short and our cow herd short when we try to manage by averages. So what are some options? All right. To kind of draw this to conclusion and really hopefully put, I guess, again, some reality around it, I've got a very busy chart here. All right, so don't panic. I want to kind of explain what's going on here. On the TDN, or total digestible nutrients, in other words, energy or calories. The orange line is a forage chart. So think of that cool season forage. So I just chose that cool season chart. We could do this with the summer Bermuda grass, but I just chose the cool season forage chart, frankly, because it has a longer growing season and stays better longer than the Bermuda. So really giving the advantage to the cow on cool season forage. Now I have two cows in my herd here. I have the blue cow, so she's represented by the blue bar, and those are her energy requirements over the course of the 12-month production year. My second cow is my green cow. Okay, so I chose blue and green because I didn't want to offend anybody if I had black cows and somebody had red cows. Just kidding. Had a blue cow and a green cow. So the green cow, hey, those are her requirements over a 12-month production period. So let's start our let's start her calving season with cow 1, and she calves on February 15th. And what you notice is her requirements when she calves are up there around 16 pounds of TDN. Now she's going to start milking, so her requirements are going to go even higher. And you can see in March, peak lactation, her highest requirements, and then in April, May, June, they start declining. Now you'll notice that her requirement is above that orange line. So what that means is she cannot get enough from your hay or standing forage to meet her needs. Okay, so if we don't feed her, what's going to happen? Well, she's going to lose weight, or she's not going to produce as much milk, or most likely both of those factors, because you can see that's a pretty dramatic deficit between what she needs and what the forage is going to provide. Now let's take calving cow 2, and I've done a really good job at my herd of tightening up my calving window to a 90-day calving season. So 90 days later, my last cow, cow 2, is going to calve in the middle of May. Now what you'll notice there is her requirements are below the orange line. Okay, so that cow forages at that time are meeting her needs. And then you can see they start to increase at the same time the forage is decreasing. So if you were to go out and carry feed to those cows from February to April before grass got really good, my question to you would be, which cow are you going to feed? Are you going to feed cow 1 that needs quite a bit of feed? Or if you look at cow 2, February, March, April, she really didn't need any. So which one do you feed? Do we feed to the average? The point is those cows are in the same herd. It's hard to match their requirements with what the forage is providing at that time. And that's in a 90-day window. So a relatively short calving window. It's tough to meet those requirements. Let's go even further into our year-round scenario. So if I want to start calving February 15th, that means I need to turn bulls in May 15th, okay? So my blue cow, now you'll notice that now her requirements in May, June, and July are below what the forage is providing. So she is likely gaining weight. Chances are, if we didn't let her slip too bad in the late winter, she's probably going to breed up pretty well, right? Because again, orange line is above her requirement. She is gaining weight at that point. Now, if I pull the bulls out in 90 days to keep my 90-day window, I'm going to pull them out in middle August. What do you notice about the green cow? Her requirements increase to where they are above the orange line. So she is losing weight through the breeding season. And what are our chances of getting a cow bred timely and with a high degree of success when she is losing weight during the breeding season? Well, why don't we feed her? Well, who in the world feeds cows during the summer on green grass? So, and if we did, how do we keep that cow that doesn't need it, cow 1, from eating all the feed? So that's our challenge of matching cows and forages when we put all that into a real world scenario. The forages are always changing. Our cow requirements are always changing. And not only that, our cow requirements individually are all different because they're all at a different stage of production. So what if we could deliver consistent nutrition despite changing conditions throughout the course of a time? And what we can do is actually, with some of our technologies, actually do that. So what I have shown here is an quote unquote average intake of a feed supplement that was free choice offered to a set of first calf heifers that had calved. And on average, those heifers ate 1.7 pounds a day. Now, what the chart shows is by month, there was never any one time, maybe late in the fall when they actually hit that, but overall, they never once hit the average. It was up and down by design. So let me tell you what this was. So this was a set of first calf heifers that came out of those cows rebred, young cows rebred in a timely manner. He was going to need to provide some supplemental nutrition. So he offered a free choice product through a bulk feeder. And from February to March, that's that first bar, those heifers ate a little over 2 pounds. Now they started calving in March. The requirements go up lo and behold, the intake went up is exactly as it should because their requirements went up. So their intake went up to 2.5. They calve out. Forage got really good, you know, as cool season fescue forages will. You can see the intake dropped all the way to 0.5 pound. Summer slump starts kicking in. So basically 4th of July into early August, their intake goes up a little bit more. August at that point, without any rain, that fescue is pretty much dormant. Their intakes go up to 2.2. We talked about the fall regrowth we get with fescue. It got a little better. Their intakes dropped off to 1.6, at which point the customer then weaned those calves at 619 pounds off first calf heifers and got 95% of them rebred, because he didn't overlook the fact that even though we normally don't think about supplementing cows in the summer, if we can put out a product that can control intake based on cattle requirements and forage nutrients provided, he would be money ahead. And so that's what this chart is illustrating. So we call that our all seasons nutrition program. This is that commercial I was telling you about, where a product like utilizing the Purina Accuration intake modifying technology along with wind and rain mineral, we can provide nutrition on a year-round basis to cows to meet their requirements, not on average, but their individual requirements as forage changes throughout the year. And it doesn't always have to be our gold standard Accuration meal supplement. This is with our Accuration blocks down in Ogden, Arkansas, with a customer there that fall calves some cows on what they call the black. So heavy soils, cubes through their cows through the winter. Like a lot of your country, you get down into that part of Arkansas, it tends to get pretty wet through the winter. And so if you're feeding cubes on the ground, 4 pounds, those cows may have got half to 2/3 of that amount. The rest of it was stomped into the mud. So when they used the Accuration block, they saw significant cost savings and improvement in performance. And today, this ranch, as well as their other locations, use these products, these Accuration blocks, on a year-round basis to again match their cows' requirements with the forage. Can't forget mineral. 2 cattle chats from now. My counterpart, Dr. John DeClercq, will be on to talk about the wind and rain mineral, but certainly the cornerstone of a good nutrition program is with wind and rain mineral. And then as we talked about, body condition scores is an excellent place to start. A lot of you are weaning your calves now, your spring calving cows. So I'd encourage you as you pull those calves off, take a body condition score of your cows. And I would say get an average, which is important, but also get a range, because it's an entirely different story if your cows range from a 3 to a 7, which would be an average of 5, or if they range from a 4 to a 6, an average of 5. So get that distribution as well. Get with Christy and I, and then we can help you with that interpretation and maybe how to get your cows ready for the next calving season. And we'll talk more about body condition scoring in one of our upcoming cattle chats. Okay, so now you've made it to this point. So I'm going to give you some more real world information that you can use, whether you choose to use and buy Purina or not. Just as something I guess we'll give to you for joining our cattle chat series. So I'm going to put up 4 hays here. I'm going to give you a chance to take a look at those. And these are actual samples from a ranch that I work with in Versailles, Missouri. They do a lot of forage testing of their hays, and they always send it to me, and we decide how we're best going to utilize it. But if you were to buy that hay, which would you buy? And so I've got the protein listed there, NDF and TDN. And I'm just going to go out on a limb and say that most people, if all that hay was priced the same, would probably buy hay 3, the 12% protein hay. Well, it's not saying that that's a bad buy, there's some better pies, because the energy provided in those 4 hays, the best hay actually was hay 2, because it's going to provide the most amount of energy to your cows. Now, how did I come up with that? Okay, so here's how I'm going to make you all cow nutritionists in 5 to 10 minutes. You'll wonder why in the world I paid as much money as I did to get a PhD if it only takes 5 to 10 minutes to train you to be a cow nutritionist. But that's what we're going to do. Okay, so I'm going to show you how I got to figuring out which one of those was the best hay. First, it starts with knowing your cow requirements, and I call this the rule of 15. So for every 100 pounds your cow weighs, when she's dry, she needs a pound of TDN. So easy enough to figure that. 1,200 pound cow needs 12 pounds of TDN when she's dry. 1,400 pound cow needs 14 pounds of TDN. Okay. Last third of gestation. Okay. So think about, if you've got cows that are going to calve in December, they're last third of gestation now. So we would increase her requirements 15%. That fetus is growing. She's starting to make colostrum. She needs more energy. So we take 12 times 1.15. So now that cow needs 13.8 pounds of TDN. Once she calves out, now remember her requirements go up, especially for that first 60 days, really. That's going to be her highest requirement. So we take that last third of gestation and multiply it times 15% to come up with her requirement for that first 60 days of lactation. So that 1,200 pound cow would need roughly 16 pounds of TDN during lactation. Okay, so we've got that part. Now, how do we figure out whether our hay is going to meet it? Because remember, our challenge is to match cow requirements with forage nutrients. Okay, so here's a hay test, all right? And we're going to suggest to you that you get a hay test. And I often get a lot of pushback on this because folks say, why would I get a hay test? I'm going to feed what I got. Well, I would submit to you that you need a hay test so you know what you've got and how to appropriately supplement it. And in some cases, you may not need to supplement it, in which case that's a pretty doggone cheap forage test. In other cases, you may need to supplement more than you think. And if you don't, your cows aren't going to milk well, they aren't going to breed up. And that can be a pretty cheap, or in this case, expensive forage test if you didn't get it done. So get a forage test. And when I say that, folks say, well, that's all fine and good. I get a forage test, but there's a whole bunch of numbers on there. I have no idea how to interpret it. What do I do with it when I got it? Okay, so most folks look at it and they look at the protein. Depending on the forage, you'll look at the nitrates and see if it's safe to feed. If it's good protein, it must be good hay. Is that true? Well, not necessarily. What I'm going to tell you is there's about 3 numbers I look at. Okay, and there they are. Protein, NDF, or it may say ANDF, and then TDN. Okay, and so I look at protein, and as long as it's basically 8% or above, that's good enough for me for a brood cow. Okay, so if it's 8% or above, it doesn't matter to me whether it's 11 or 12 or 9 or whatever, just 8% or above. If we can get above that, we can meet the microbial protein needs of the rumen bugs, and they'll be able to digest it. Okay. Second number I'm going to look at is NDF. That's the amount of fiber that's in that forage, and that is a predictor of how much of that forage she can eat. And then the third number I'm going to look at is TDN. So that's an estimate of the energy, so the percentage of energy in each pound. So how do I use those 3 numbers? Okay, I told you above 8% this formula worked. How much of that forage can she eat? So I take that cow body weight times 1.15 and I divide it by forage NDF. So a 1,200 pound cow times 1.5 divided by 60, it says that cow can eat 23 pounds of that forage. Now this is on a dry matter basis, so water removed. Okay. I multiply that forage intake times the TDN. So the third number I circled on that forage test. So 23 times 0.56 as an example. That means that cow could eat would get 12.9 pounds of TDN from the forage. So you think about a 1,200 pound cow, her requirement when she's dry is 12. So this hay would meet a dry cow's requirement. Last third of gestation, remember what it was. 1,200 times 1.15 is 13.8. So now this cow, last third of gestation, would be essentially 1 pound of TDN short. So we got to figure out how we're going to deliver that. Rangeland tub in that scenario would be a good example. If we're feeding this kind of hay, when that cow starts lactating, so think about it then, her requirement went up to 15.8. Now she's 3 pounds of TDN short. If we give her this quality hay, you can see that she's basically going to lose weight. So we got to figure out a way to come up with 3 pounds of additional TDN, which is somewhere around 4 to 5 pounds of range cube or a bulk feed, which bulk feed will be another topic of one of our cattle chats coming up. Okay, so there you are. You are now a cattle nutritionist, a cow nutritionist, and know how to take a forage sample, figure out whether your cows are going to meet their requirements. The other thing I'd say is just if you're into budgeting hay and knowing if you got enough, feed it free choice in this, as in this scenario. You need to convert that dry matter to as fed. So most hay is 15%. So again, rule of 15. You add 15% to account for the hay is probably about 15% water. So a cow is really going to eat 26, 28 pounds of that as fed, and that doesn't include the amount that she's going to waste. So when somebody says my cows are eating 30 to 32 pounds, that's how much is disappearing anyway between what they're consuming and what they're wasting. So that is just a rule of thumb to help you understand your forage test and how to use that and meet your cow requirements. So Dr. John Patterson's quote there sounds pretty straightforward, right? Constant challenge is to match forage nutrients with animal requirements. When it comes down to it and how we do that, the fact that our forages are always changing, each individual cow requirement is changing every day, and then every cow in our herd has a different requirement depending on their size and their stage of production. It really is quite the challenge to get that done, to know how much feed to feed on quote unquote average to our cow herd. And really a way that we can help at Purina to do that is a supplementation program with all seasons nutrition and one of our AccuRation products. So that I will be more than happy to address some questions. And I think, Christy, you've got a video to show of sampling some forages. Is that right?
Absolutely. So let's see if we can get this thing to share this evening. So, all right.
Hello, my name is Christy Keeler. I am a Purina sales specialist. Today, I'm out on site at a cow-calf producer, and we are in the process of coring hay. As you'll see, I've got some hay here in our back. And the reason why we're coring hay is to look at the forage results to assist the producer with making proper cow protein supplementation recommendations going into the fall feed season.
So the little short glimpse of what we do to help our producers out here in the field tonight. So with that being said, Dr. Crosby, we do have a couple of questions that have dropped in this evening. What's more important? Is it protein or TDN that's the most important when we look at our hay results?
To me, once the protein is at a minimum baseline level of 8 or 9%, then I started looking more at the energy. So you think back to one of our very early cattle chat series where we talked about rumen microbiology or rumen biology or basic ruminant nutrition, we called it. If we have the bugs that are going to ferment that forage have to have a base level of nitrogen so that they can grow and reproduce and ferment that fiber. And basically at 9% hay for sure, we're getting that done. And so at that point, we're getting the nitrogen or protein supply to the bugs. and then energy becomes more important than that. And so if we're looking at maybe some prairie or native grass hays that are going to typically test 5 to 6%, we have to supplement protein first before we start looking at energy. For that reason, just to meet those bug requirements.
Okay. So the other question that was sent in is if we are carrying over hay from last year, will there be any changes in that nutritional value?
If it has been kept dry, there will be very little change to that forage. Of course, if it's gotten wet, there's going to be some leaching of nutrients and certainly some nutrient loss. Interestingly, if you put up, if you're in the northwest part of the state, maybe bale some fescue that is kept over a year, the endophyte in it, the basically that fungus that causes us a lot of problems associated with endophyte, it decreases with storage. So a lot of times I'll have customers tell me, man, my cows eat that 2-year-old fescue hay better than they did this year's hay. And that's why the endophyte is declining with time, and they would prefer it over the new hay. So that's actually an advantage in some cases.
So another one, and just kind of feed on to that, is when we look at that comparison of hay being stored outside versus hay being stored in a barn, is there any kind of key factors that you would want to think about there? Somebody had mentioned that they had read an article at some point that you'll start losing a percentage over a period of time.
Yeah, if you're going to feed it in the same year, from a nutritional standpoint, I don't think there's a whole lot difference. But what you're losing is just the loss on the outside. You think about the proportion of the bale that is in the outer 6 to 8 inches of a large round bale. It is significant. And I should have been prepared, and I can get Christy that information if you want to check back with her. But I can't call off the top of my head what percentage of the bale is in that outer 6 to 8 inches, but it is surprising. And so that's, of course, the part that's going to get rotted storing outside, especially from the bottom if we don't have it stacked on a good pad. And so that would be the biggest disadvantage in that scenario.
Okay. So, and then I had one that came through on a text message, Dr. Crosby, was in regards to when we're talking about, you mentioned about body condition scoring and sorting those cows. Would we also throw production stage into that sort as well?
Yeah, again, think about the reality and how many pastures can we legitimately have. But certainly anytime you can sort cows more by stage of or their nutrient requirements and feed appropriately, not only will you improve performance, but also it's probably going to take you less feed. And so sometimes young cows put with old cows, or young cows, old cows, and thin cows maybe all need to go together. So that's an excellent comment, and just really good animal husbandry if you can accomplish that. And that way you can feed appropriately and feed to that average requirement need of those particular animals.
Well, those are the only questions that we have received in at this time. So what I'd like to do is to take and walk through a little bit more information for you and or for the audience here this evening. So those of you that have joined us tonight, if you pick up your cell phone and text, you'll send a text message to 95323, and in that body portion, type Purina, Purina. That will then instantaneously send you a text message with a hyperlink. You'll click on that hyperlink and select A for Arkansas, select Arkansas, And then tonight, we are using Farmers Cooperative in MENA checkerboard days. This will then generate you have to fill out a little bit of information. It will generate you an email. And in that email, you will receive back a $10 off coupon that will have an expiration date. That allows you an opportunity to swing by any of the 15 retail stores that Farmers Cooperative has across southwestern Arkansas, all the way up to northwestern Arkansas and over into eastern Oklahoma. So also, if you have not fed, NT spoke a little bit about our cattle mineral, and we will touch more on that later on in 2 series away, so 4 weeks from tonight. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, but we do have some cattle feed greatness challenge. So if you guys have any questions on that, feel free to drop into any of these locations and they can assist you, or those folks know how to get in touch with myself. So coming up into October, it's amazing that we're already through the end of September. We are continuing on every other Tuesday night with our online cattle meetings. We'll have our next cattle meeting on October the 13th at 7 o'clock, and Dr. Ted Perry will be joining us to talk about supplementing with our blocks, our tubs, or the liquid. And then on October the 27th at 7 p.m., Dr. Jonathan DeClerc will be on to talk about mineral. If you guys have any horses in there that around your operation, Ty Cunningham, our equine specialist, will be joining us on October the 8th at 7 p.m. to talk about when and why we would use an equine supplement. If you go to the farmerscooperative.com website, all of our virtual meetings are listed there. And if you register and attend via the Zoom, you will be entered to receive one of 2 $25 Farmers Cooperative gift cards. So with that, we would like to call for last round of questions. We do have a little bit of a delayed feed going on to our Facebook live feed. So just always like to remind you guys is to receive the $10 off coupon, you are going to text 95323 in the body, Purina, Purina. You will receive a text message back with a hyperlink. Select A, then Arkansas, and then tonight we are using Farmers Cooperative in MENA checkerboard days. This access for the coupon will end on the 1st of October, so for 48 hours. You will receive an email back, and that will give you the coupon that you can print off to take to any of your locations. So one thing that would like to kind of shout out tonight is Farmers Cooperative is upcycling your tubs. So if you guys have any empty plastic tubs from 200 to 250 pounds sitting around there in the barn, anything like that, gather those up, bring those by any of the 15 retail stores, and they got to be debris free, so no extra manure, mud, debris sitting in those. And we are collecting those through October the 3rd. So that's going to be on Saturday. Once you bring those in, they will give you a $4 voucher to come back in for a future purchase of one of the Purina protein tubs. And that voucher will expire on March the 31st of 2021. So with that being said, I have popped up my contact number. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to call me. My return number is 830-330-0902. And my email address is listed there, and that's Keeler, so CKEELER at landolake.com. We appreciate you guys. We appreciate you taking the time out of your evening to join us tonight. We look forward to seeing you guys on our next round of virtual meeting. The Cattle Chat will be on October the 13th, and then again on October the 27th. And then we'll have a couple of series into November as well. So, and don't forget, pick up those extra tubs that you got sitting out there in the barn or out in the pasture that might be empty. Our goal is to help be the environmental stewardess of our land and do what's right for the environment. So just a great opportunity to help you guys out. So with that, NT, if you don't mind hanging on just a little bit, if you guys got any questions, feel free to drop those in, but we'll hang out maybe for an extra minute just to see if we get anything. All right, so we just checked the Facebook live stream for us this evening, Dr. NT, and we don't see anything coming in.
Okay.
So we appreciate you taking the time to join us, and I guess we'll catch you here in about a month, I think, or about 6 weeks. So see you later, guys. Thanks so much.
Thank you.